Hello and welcome back to the next session within the ZSM Forum. This one is titled On the Journey to Zero Touch and Autonomous Networks, ONAP and ZSM. And your speaker will once again be Magnus Burkhardt, the rapporteur for ETSI ZSM 011 from Ericsson. Welcome, Magnus.
Thank you very much. I also actually have a task in ONAP. I'm the technical community coordinator for network management, meaning that I reach out to the different standards bodies on behalf of ONAP, and I report back to ONAP on that. So I listed here some ONAP and ETSI ZSM touchpoints. So the reference architecture, of course, the service-based end-to-end automation management architecture, fits well into ONAP, as you will see later. There's also the end-to-end network slicing management, ZSM 3, and the cross-domain end-to-end service lifecycle management. We also have some touch points with ONAP. And the closed loop automation, as you will see later on, is also an important touch point. And as well, the intent-based automation network study that I talked about before. And you've heard of all of these items before. You will, at this point, you know about them. Just reiterating the architecture here, the service-based architecture that Uwe presented earlier today. And if you look at the connection to ONAP, then one ONAP implementation option would be to see ONAP as an end-to-end service management domain, or you could say the realization of that architecture block. And also ONAP could serve as a management domain. So presently we see sort of ONAP as sort of implementing one domain, but there could be, of course, in parallel different domains depending on ONAP and using ONAP architecture and components. And then there is another option, of course, is that you can use components from ONAP. ONAP is, of course, as the abbreviation say, it's a platform, but there is also a possibility to take out different components and run them independently. A little bit sort of, you could say, depending on which component it is. And of course, also there is then a possibility to have mixed solutions with ONAP components and other components in the various domains. So when I continue here, I will use some slides from earlier presentations, and this was these presentations were made in December of last year, showing ONAP end-to-end network slicing, how ZSM comes into that, and the ETSI ZSM work items on closed-loop automation. It's just, I mean, the same people and the same subject that you've heard today, but I've used the previous slides that were presented in an earlier presentation to give you examples of the touch point between ONAP and the ZSM. Network slice management, you heard about this before. The terms that I'm going to use here is a communication service management function, the network slice management function, and the network slice subnet management function. And these are terms that have been sort of specified by 3GPP. And if you look at the an ONAP sort of end-to-end network slicing example here, you can see that the communication service management functions are implemented in ONAP, and the network service management function. And then there are a number of different sub networks, sub slices in RAN, core, and transport network. And in the case that I'm going to talk about is the transport network, where you can see the management functions there in ONAP, controlling different resources in a transport network. So in ZSM 003, the end-to-end network slicing architecture, if you map this, you would see that you have the possibility to have an access network, a core network, and a transport network is situated in different domains, or consists being the different sort of domains that then will be used to form an end-to-end service. So it provides an architecture that identifies the components and specifies their functionalities in interfaces. It follows, therefore, that the solution to transport slicing is illustrated in the context of end-to-end network slicing. So this is an ideal sort of architecture to use, and that was chosen by the people working with standard transport slicing in ONAP. And then also the aspects of the architecture, the reference architecture from ZSM that were appealing to the people in ONAP. It's model-driven, open interfaces, and the models are independent of the implementation. Separation of concerns, sort of decoupling the management domains and end-to-end service domain. And intent-based interfaces are also sort of indicated. That is also interesting for ONAP, this ONAP use case. Designed for automation, zero-touch network, and closed-loop management automation. So these were the reasons for ONAP transport network slice people to adopt the ZSM architecture. Furthermore, if we look into then the on the left-hand side, you see a depiction of this end-to-end network slicing architecture, and then if you look at the right-hand side, there is the transport network. So it has a domain integration fabric, as indicated in the architecture, and then it's using sort of a logical view from IETF transport slicing solution. Look at the transport slicing future roadmap, and this is taken from a presentation in December. So there are probably new things, sort of new dates and new things coming up. But the idea here is to look at the various ways of using control loops, closed loops for this use case. And you can see here, and so number one here is sort of service provisioning and activation, and that would be typically sort of days to minutes in that loop. So each loop has a different time scale. There is also possibility to use a closed loop or control loop for network planning and deployment. And that would be a slower loop, of course. as the network troubleshooting and restoration. It's maybe hours to minutes, and you have to be quick there if you need to solve the problems, of course. And then there is a longer time span also for the fourth example here of the traffic prediction based auto network planning. So you can see that loops come in here in various aspects, and those are the indicative plans here for when this transport network slice people in ONAP will take on the different sort of closed loops. If you look at the sort of work done in ONAP in ZSM, that sort of is connected to the work in ONAP. There is a governance of multiple closed loops using closed loop models and closed loop lifecycle management. As a coordination of multiple closed loops and using closed loop coordination management services, and that's a very much a potential for collaboration. And then there are solutions sort of specified in ZSM 9-2 that you heard about today that also has a possibility to work with ONAP. And you've also seen this closed loop in ZSM framework, the sort of model here for the closed loop that where the different interfaces are specified and the different stages here, and that will also be sort of used in the further work in ONAP. And there is also a big sort of resemblance in the work that is done in ONAP. It's not only for the network slicing, of course, but it's also a work in ONAP for control loops and clamp that has a lot of resemblance with the work in ZSM. And we've also had sort of contact between people working with this in the different camps. Another aspect that could be sort of interesting to cooperate between ONAP and ZSM is also the closed loop governance. And you heard Pedro talking about this earlier today. Set of capabilities for external entities to manage the closed loop models and the life cycle of closed loops in design time and in runtime. And as you may know that there are both runtime, design time, and sort of runtime aspects handled in ONAP. So that is sort of a connection in both aspects. Configuration of policies, rules, triggers, priorities for the closed loop, and then status and performance information on the closed loops. So that would be that work with the lifecycle management is of course highly relevant also to ONAP. So I would like to then make a call for collaboration as well. Take the opportunity here. I mean, there are a number of touch point areas, end-to-end network slicing management, cross-domain end-to-end service lifecycle management, closed-loop automation, intent-driven automation network. And the progress, of course, here is dependent on joint efforts. So, I mean, I ask anyone here to please suggest ideas for further collaboration, so for use cases and proof of concepts. So we are open to this kind of collaboration. I think it's very important for ZSM to get sort of feedback like we've had from the network slicing people in ONAP on what they think is valuable, and also the usefulness of sort of the architecture. So that was the presentation. I left here sort of 5 minutes for questions or comments.
Thank you, Magnus. If there are any questions later on, Magnus will be in the wrap-up session.
Yeah, right.
So the session after this.